Hello there, I'm Simon Rafe and welcome to Brown Bag Bible Study, the Bible study that you can do in your lunch break. Now this is an introduction to Scripture. It'll give you some information that you might not have known and it's going to encourage you to read the Bible, but most importantly, it's presented in bite-sized pieces which are perfect to fit in with today's busy lifestyles. Now, every week I will concentrate on a small part of Scripture, either one of the 73 books of the Bible or a group of related books, and I'll bring you some interesting facts and information to help you understand it. I'll also be including links to further reading, articles, books, and what have you that's going to help you learn to love sacred Scripture even more. This week, the book of SIRA, also known as the Wisdom of Ben Sira or Ecclesiasticus. The book is generally named after its author, the Jewish scholar Jesus ben Sirach, although in the Western Church it has been commonly called Ecclesiasticus, which is from the Latinized Greek phrase meaning church book, because it was so commonly read in churches. Which of course makes it very sad that the Protestants and post-Christian Jews, reject the book as non-scriptural. It's part of the Deuterocanon, and so when the topic comes up, you must be ready to defend the Deuterocanon's rightful place in the Bible. Check out the resources attached to this episode, as well as the earlier episode on the Deuterocanon to help you do this. But this book, it was originally written in Hebrew in the early 2nd century before Christ. It was translated into Greek in Egypt by the author's grandson, as is made explicit in the first section of the text. One of the most charming things within this section is the translator begging the reader to receive the wisdom with goodwill and to be indulgent because of potential difficulties in translation between Hebrew and Greek. He specifically says ideas in one language cannot always be perfectly expressed in another, an important warning for us all trying to understand the scriptures. Now, the original Hebrew text was known to Saint Jerome, who assembled and translated the first Latin text of the Bible, the famous and celebrated Latin Vulgate. But it was the Greek version which was brought into the canon of the Bible, despite Jerome's penchant for Hebrew veritas, or Hebrew truth, a belief that the best version of a text was the Jewish one. Now, the Hebrew text was lost for many centuries, and arguments Protestants have used to deny the inclusion in the canon. Recently, however, as recently as far as biblical scholarship goes, I suppose, fragments of the Hebrew text have been found. In 1896, portions of a Hebrew text copied in the 11th or 12th century were found in a Cairo synagogue. In the 1960s and 1950s, Hebrew copies were found among the Dead Sea Scrolls. Although fragmented and incomplete, these texts show the book was originally written in Hebrew and they support the authenticity of the Greek Septuagint version that we have today. Now, the book was translated into Greek during the persecution of the Jews by the Seleucid Empire, a successor state of the Greek Alexander the Great, and it was their attempts to force pagan religion on the Israelites. In this, the Book of Sirach has much in common with the Book of Wisdom. Even the history of their composition is similar. Ben Sira wrote the book in order to restate traditional Jewish wisdom, trying to counteract the coming pagan influence with the worship of the true God. As Catholicism is the fulfillment of Judaism with the coming of Christ, whose coming was less than 200 years from the composition of this work, remember, there is much of value in this book for our present time. We too live in a world of persecution by a powerful pagan empire, and though the persecution may be less physical than it was under the Seleucids, it is no less serious. The restatement of authentic truths is of great value to us, and indeed, it's a shame the Protestants have chosen to reject this book. So, read the Book of Sirach, the last of the wisdom books, and perhaps take a few moments to compare it with the Book of Wisdom, with whom it shares much. Also, if you have time, take a look at the additional resources, including some historical background on the Seleucids and related subjects. That's all for the wisdom books. Next week, we will move into the New Testament, and we'll look at the letter to the Hebrews. Until then, I'm Simon Rafe, and God bless. To learn more about the place of Scripture in the lives of Catholic Christians, I urge you to read Pope Benedict's Apostolic Exhortation Verbum Domini. The Pope encourages all Catholics to read, learn, and love Scripture and to understand its relation to the Church. A link to this exhortation is included in the reading materials for every episode of Brown Bag Bible Study. Just click the link over there.